Hello and welcome to Ensuring Success 2018. If this is your first session of the day, we're so happy to have you join us. If you have been here all day with us, we're amazed and so pleased that you've been here for 10 hours or anything in between. Thank you for sharing your time with us. We are live in Dallas, Texas at AMS Pictures, and I am Gail Perry, Editor-in-Chief of CPA Practice Advisor magazine. Before we continue into this session, I want to thank all of our sponsors who have made this event possible. We could not do this without the sponsors who are participating in this event. So I'm just going to read their names real quickly. And they are Xero, Avalara, Boomer Consulting, CPA.com, eFileForBiz.com, Intuit ProConnect, Peisner Johnson, Receipt Bank, and Sage, and Canopy. And in particular, we'd like to thank Canopy. They are the sponsor of this particular session. So for those of you who are just joining us for this session, I want to tell you how to get your CPE credit at the end of the session. For those who have been here all day, I'm sorry because you've heard this 9 times already, but here we go again. So to get your CPE credit during the session, we'll pause 3 times and display a CPE code, a numerical code on the bottom of the screen. And you're required to write this down if you want CPE credit because you'll need to remember it later when we're finished. So you'll get 3 3-digit codes for this session. At the end of the day, you'll go up to the top of the screen where it says get your CE/CPE credit. And when you click that, you'll see a screen that lists all of the sessions that we've done today. And then you can enter the codes you've saved for every session you've attended. If you have any problems acquiring CPE, if there's any issue with that screen, I don't expect there to be, but if you have any questions about CPE or any problems with CPE, please contact us at info@ensuringsuccess.com, and we'll be sure to help you make sure that you get your credit for the sessions you've attended. You can also reach us if you'd like to just chat or share a picture of yourself watching the event or whatever you'd like to do on Facebook and Twitter. We're on Facebook on the CPA Practice Advisor Facebook page, and also we're on Twitter with the hashtag DecemberCPE. So I'd like to introduce our speakers for this session on budgeting and forecasting beyond the crystal ball. And after I introduce them, I will have them give you their names. And also, I just also was reminded that I want to mention we are doing some polling in this session as well. So we'll ask a couple of polling questions, and you can respond to those questions if you'd like to participate by opening Slido.com, and we recommend that you open that on some other device other than the screen you're using to watch us. So it's Slido, SLIDO.com, and the code to get to the polls is DecemberCPE. So if you'd like to answer our polling questions, in fact, there's one up there right now. You can go to Slido.com and share your answers with the rest of our audience. So our speakers today are, on my right, Byron Patrick, and then Elizabeth Adams, and then Marty McCutcheon. And so I'd like each of them to give a brief introduction to who they are, and then we'll start our session on budgeting and forecasting.
Great. Hi, Gail.
Hi.
My name is Byron Patrick. I am the Managing Director of Business Development with Network Alliance, working in the CPA industry for many years.
All right.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Adams. I am based here in Dallas and run a consulting group focused on technology and finance, doing a lot of app advisory and sales reporting and budgeting with clients.
Yeah, I'm Marty McCutcheon. We have a firm here in Fort Worth, Texas. Well, we're in Dallas, but next door to here in Fort Worth. And we do tax consulting and financial advisory for small business owners.
All right, excellent. So accountants, by their nature, are often kind of risk averse. So going into an area, and that's why we named this session Beyond the Crystal Ball, because I think going into an area of budgeting and forecasting gets a little bit out of the comfort zone of many accountants. So what we'd like to discuss today, based on the experiences that you all have with technology and providing these services to clients, is how can accountants be comfortable in this arena by using the tools that we have available to us. So first of all, I think we need some general information about what we mean by budgeting and forecasting. So, I mean, is it really just like reading the tea leaves and trying to figure things out, or is there a science to this?
Okay. I think Elizabeth has a lot of experience there.
I'll start. I always like to make sure that whenever I start to have these conversations with clients, I'm on their same page. I always want to make sure that we understand where we're both coming from. And so as far as budgeting and forecasting, my clients are primarily focused on understanding what their cash balances are going to be in the future. And so I need to make sure that I understand what it's going to take to get there. And so whether that's on this entering in their revenue and expense assumptions first, and then getting back to movements in the balance sheet, I want to make sure that that I have enough information in order to predict that cash balance in the future.
Okay. And I'm looking at our poll results right now. For client or for accountants who are primarily providing compliance work, bookkeeping and tax, who I'm guessing are interested in being able to expand their services into a budgeting and forecasting area because they're in this session right now. So and I think we'll be coming back to this question throughout the session as we talk about the different aspects of actually doing budgeting and forecasting. But just initially, what steps can an accountant take if they want to move into this area and learn more about how to perform this kind of service?
I can tell you how not to do it.
Okay.
So we've done it in the past. We've had larger clients that have good books and records, and it's a lot easier to do because you have good books and records, and you can take some trends and you make some suggestions. And then we tried to take that, and it worked real well. And then we tried to take it to smaller clients, and we weren't doing any bookkeeping for them. And so we were trying to give them suggestions and try to do some budgeting and forecasting. Well, what we had to go with, like, this is garbage. I was like, the books and records aren't in good shape, so you got to make sure those books and records, the basic blocking and tackling, is done right before you can start doing this, or you're not going to give good advice. So that's kind of where we end up buying a bookkeeping practice, so then we could then offer that service to more clients.
So basically, you're starting with the past
Right.
performance, but that's got to be in good shape before you can start using that to start making
Exactly.
projections about the future.
Exactly, because a lot of times with, and Elizabeth, you talk about getting an understanding with your clients. A lot of times we have our clients that, I mean, they're a salesperson, or they know how to make a widget, and they know how to make money, but they don't really know why they make money. So we sit there and we just talk, we go with the lemonade stand, and we're like, all right, how much does it cost to produce this, and how much are you selling it? And then how much profit, and then because they think on the financial, and they're looking at accrual base, they're like, hey, I made $1 million this year. And like, well, I don't have $1 million of extra cash. So we walk through and talk about cash flow and just every transaction to understand how that affects. And once they understand that and how it affects their financials, then we kind of can get. But it takes a lot of learning and teaching for those folks to understand that if they're not a financial person, if they're just a business owner that knows how to sell things or make something, you got to lay some groundwork to make
and
it.
I would also say they have to be open
Yeah.
to hearing about it, because sometimes I have clients that would be a really great fit for this type of service that I feel like they could really benefit from actually putting together a budget and predicting a cash balance and knowing the difference in their budget actual at certain points in time during the year. But if they don't want to hear about it, then it's not worth any of our time to actually go through the exercise and do it. So I think being ready with accurate books is a good starting point, and then for the client to be open and willing to invest in that are two key components for a successful launch into this service line.
Because we don't see, I mean, of our accounting clients that we do, I mean, probably 10 to 15% are even ready for this. I mean, it's not, you can't go out. Initially, I was thinking, oh, everybody we do accounting for will be open to this. They're not, because some of them, you can say, hey, I'm going to charge you extra to do this and to give you a lot of value. And some of them, they just like, well, I'm not going to change the way I'm doing anything, so there's no value to it. But some people really want it, and that's where it's 10 to 15% of our client base is who we offer the service to. And it's fun because you can change your life in the way they run their business. Then you get referrals. It's a great deal.
We're going to come back to some questions on how you charge for this service and how you convince your clients that they might need it. But I think Elizabeth has a lot of nuts and bolts on how to actually perform this service. So I'd like to kind of dig into that a little bit with Brian jumping in too, because Brian can talk about the tools that he's familiar with that can be used to help make this service feasible. So.
Yeah. So usually one of the first things when I decide which tool I'm going to use with a client, I make sure to understand if this is going to be a one-time analysis or if it's going to be an ongoing analysis. Meaning, am I going to need to refresh this information? Am I going to need more than one scenario based on whatever criteria I have? And that will determine, is it easier and faster for me to do this in Excel? Or do I need to use a cloud tool that's going to talk to your QuickBooks or Xero file? Or what's the best use of time in that way? And then from there, I just on a practical level go through, and usually everyone gets excited about sales, so I always start talking about sales, because then you get something done and they're excited about it, and they're like, oh, I'm going to make so much money. And they're like, yeah, but now we got to get to the expenses. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I try to gauge people's interest in what we're talking about, so that they're engaged. But I always try to make sure that the client understands that these are their assumptions and their books, and I am collaborating with them and helping them put it all together in a way that's most meaningful for their business and their initiatives that they're taking on, but they're their books, not my books, and so I'm just getting a framework for them to be able to use it.
Okay, we need to just break momentarily. We're not going to go away, but just want to let you know that we're posting the first CPE code for this session on the bottom of the screen. So be sure to write down that 3-digit code. You'll get 2 more during this session, but this is the first one, so make sure you record that if you need continuing education credit for this session in the end. Okay, Elizabeth, when you're, or well, all of you, I'll throw this out to all of you, when you're talking about budgeting and trying to help people see the big picture and the future picture, and I do budgeting for individuals as opposed to businesses, but what has worked for me is talking about the goals and what they want to achieve, and not just here's what you made last year and here's what you spent, and this, you're going to be limited to 10% more of that or whatever, but actually trying to set goals and use the budget to achieve those numbers. So what's your experience in doing really more goal-based budgeting where you're helping them reach something that they didn't know they could possibly do on their own?
When I go through and set up assumptions with clients, it ends up being a discussion about their business model. And through that, we end up talking about every revenue stream that they have and ones that they want to have. And if it's and the ones that they want to have are their goals, and they might take an initiative to where they know they're going to make an investment in developing a software product in, say, 2019, but they may or may not be able to generate sales on it during the year. So they know it's going to be a loss, but it's more of a long-term goal. But they want to go ahead and set up the category, and like when they see it on their projected set of deliverables, then I always try to say, like, this is inspiration. We're going to go ahead and set it up so that you remember that it's here, and just in case you forgot,
Right.
But that's how I usually handle that. And sometimes, it's making sure that they actually write things down ahead of time when they come and talk about it.
Okay. So where in the process does it make sense to start working with a client on forecasting where they're going to be in the future?
I think any of them that want to have goals and aspirations to change their position in the marketplace and personally, because everybody gets in, you kind of talk about, I'm going to go back on this goal base budgeting. Everybody has a goal, and that's one of the first things we're like, why are you doing this? Because you can easily go be a W-2 employee and work your 40 and not have all this stress. Why are you doing this? And so they can, after I find out what that is, and then and a lot of them, they talk about the sales. That's the easy question. I'm like, okay. Or they say, I want to make X amount take home. So one of the things we talk about is like, okay, you're right here, and you want to get here. Let's look at numbers, but what's it going to take, and what is it going to do to you? Because people don't understand, these business owners, that you can go broke by growing because of the cash flow and all the working capital. Sure. Yeah. So we kind of work backwards on that, and we say, all right, what is the cash flow of everything you produce? And so where does the cost start, and when do you actually get money? And then we start throwing growth on showing what happens on the growth side. So they might say, hey, I want to double my take-home pay in 36 months. And then we should run it like, you know what, you can double it, but you're going to have to go do a lot of things. You might go get some financing from working capital and stuff like that. Hey, why don't you, and they're like, I don't know if I want to do all that. But we can go and say, well, maybe if you take it for 5 years to double your take-home, it can be a little more modest growth for you. You're not going to have all the working capital issues. And it's very eye-opening because, as you see a lot of times, you have all these clients in a panic. They're like, I'm selling, but I don't have any cash. Where did it go? And to be able to show them before they start growing and let them expect to, hey, because it's a lot easier to go to a bank before you need the cash than when you need it. So that's how we do everything off the cash flow, and it kind of dovetail into the budget. So
yeah, I think it's interesting too, especially for this audience. So personally, I don't do any tax work, but there's obviously a lot of people here who do. And I think one of the things that's really interesting about this service line is if you are able to get clients to look at their budget to actual and their forecast on a regular basis, I feel that it's a really great opportunity for some tax planning and other advisory work that are auxiliary services that the firm may be offering. And I'm not sure if that's something that you may deal with in your work with, because you work so much with many more CPA groups.
Right.
Because I work with the business owners, and I'm not working with the CPA groups. But
yeah, and I mean, what I find in talking to the groups that I work with that are doing these types of services is it actually introduces a higher level of advisory, because they dig into doing like the cash flow or the forecasting, and the client quickly realizes they don't know what numbers are impacted by certain actions. So as sales go up, what is associated with that, or what their logic is for ordering inventory and those types of things. So it definitely expands the conversation beyond just the simple forecast or budget.
yeah, when you tell a client to don't grow as fast so you can have more money, they look at you like you have three eyes. And they're like, you're a moron. I'm like, trust me, look, let's see. And so just don't take that extra project. Right. Let this cash mature and wait a couple of months to get add stuff.
To open that second location. It's not just revenue right away.
Yeah, I think that's really huge, tying the different elements of their income statement together.
Yes.
And what impacts other things. And a lot of, like you said, the people who are great at making widgets aren't necessarily going to have a feel for what all that means when they see those numbers.
And I don't ever show them a financial, because they don't know how to read it.
Yeah.
I mean, they just don't. They just kind of get glossy eyes, and they're like, "Hey, I'm looking at this balance sheet. Where's my revenue?" I'm like, "You're on the wrong one, buddy." So I mean, so we use graphs and charts and stuff like that, numbers, crayons, all the good stuff.
So speaking of graphs and charts and all that good stuff, what kind of tools are people using for this kind of practice?
It is really the Wild West of tools. You go out and you look at online and on, on the various marketplaces and like the Xero and QuickBooks ecosystems, and there is a lot of tools out there. And what's interesting to me is there's not just one. It's a lot of people are using multiple tools and or searching for industry specific. I was just talking to Jeannie outside, and she's looking for a tool that will help with forecasting for the wine industry, and there doesn't really seem to be the right fit. So it's almost like she's going to build it in Excel, which a lot of people are doing. But then I was talking to Elizabeth, and what'd you say, Futurely?
Yeah, I
think?
use one called Futurely.
Yeah.
I've had a really good experience with it. I've used some other ones too, but I like it because I can have a good starting point, and I can work with my clients to say, okay, do you want to make your assumptions on a monthly basis, an annual basis, or a daily basis? If you want to go gung-ho about the entire thing, you're going to have to update this all the time, but if you want to, you can. But it's helpful, and they have templates, and as the service provider, it's easy to replicate some of the standard things that you would need. And then I think another interesting component to this service line is, especially coming from the accountant's perspective, is really getting comfortable with finance terms. And so one of those is like KPIs. Everyone's always talking about what's your KPI. And so, but then when you're actually in front of a client, you have to define what those are, and getting them to think about what's going to be meaningful for their business. Is it going to be number of customers per day or sales per employee, and do you want to track that? And if not, that's okay, but like the option is there. So getting those defined up front is real helpful. And as the accountant, you gotta be comfortable talking about that, and like gross margin and net sales and how much cash are you going through every month.
Well, and I think the key is finding the right ones to look at, right? Like you can be overwhelmed with the tools and the amount of KPIs, and it's just a question of what KPIs can you actually have impact on to measure. Otherwise, it becomes noise without finding the right ones. And then, Marty, you said you were using Fathom which is doing almost dashboarding for.
So we use Fathom, and that's all we use, is because I'm comfortable with it. So what we hook it up to the QuickBooks or the QuickBooks Online, and then we only use a handful of the KPIs. So, and we just stick to those. Like if you're a service business, we're like, okay, we need to look at gross margin on your labor, and then we're looking at gross margin on everything. We're looking at aging of receivables, and we're just looking at the same stuff and over and over, because what we're trying to do, we don't want every client to be different, because you're either, and maybe we oversimplify it, but you're either taking knowledge and marking it up and having labor, or you're building something and putting a bunch of pieces together and marking it up. So it's all the same kind of deal. Business is business, but we want to be able to scale this service and be able to have anybody in our firm to be able to look at this and be able to understand, because as this thing's growing, I only have so many hours in the day, and so we need everybody to be knowledgeable and to be able to have some sort of process and say, all right, this is what you look for, and this is how you react to it, and this is how you talk to a client about it, and just keep it pretty simple.
So when you're going down the road of starting to do budgeting and forecasting, and say you want to, and I'm actually kind of using those terms somewhat interchangeably, but not really, because they do have different roles that they play. And you're looking for some tools to help you with that. And most of the accounting packages, I think, include some basic budgeting tools, in that you can build the financial statements within the program and tweak them the way you want to. But in terms of dashboarding or reporting, or just helping to provide incentive, or whatever, what are you looking for in a tool if you want to help your client do their budgeting and forecasting in a really effective way? Something that they can use that maybe you can use with them, so you're both getting the reports, or what do you search for? What are you looking for?
I think, I mean, a lot of it's usability, number one, right?
What you're comfortable with.
Right. If you can't use the tool, then
How do you teach someone else?
the chance of the client using it is pretty limited. So, and Elizabeth brought up a good point in the sense of, depending on what that project is, if you need multiple scenarios or if you just need simple, metrics and dashboarding, identifying what the result is that you want out of that tool, because a lot of them have a million features that you'll never use. And so finding the right set of features, I think is key, and you have to try them. I mean, I assume you went through a number before you got to Futurely.
I did, yeah. One of the things that I'll just tell you one of my favorite things about Futurely. I can go and I can set up different categories for their buckets within the chart of accounts, essentially. And I can apply formulas to them, I can make notes about them, and then I can publish those to either cards on a dashboard, or I can publish it to something I can export in a PDF. And so I used it with an engineering group that was making a presentation to a potential new vendor, thinking about bringing on a new supplier, and they wanted to build out different scenarios for taking on new business. And so every time the business owner wanted to make a change to an assumption, like, oh, we don't think we're going to be able to sell as much in Q3, so maybe we need to scale back our hiring needs. So it's not hard to go in and make a change, and then it would just update on the cards that I already built for the output. So I didn't have to go back and redo a whole presentation because I made one change to one number. Whereas if I had started in Excel, I would have had to re-export, put it in the PowerPoint, and then download it. I mean, it's just, But I needed that functionality for that particular project. So those types of features are what I look for in a tool. And it's something that is repeatable that I can use with other people too.
The number one thing for me, I mean, usability, but it's got to be integrated with the accounting system, so we're not key punching stuff. I mean, there's stuff out there that still isn't that way, and so something that as you're making changes, it redoes your reporting, because you just don't
want to start over.
Nope.
Yeah.
That will cause mistakes.
That's deal breaker right there.
That is a deal breaker.
Absolutely.
It's got to have good integration.
Yeah, and cloud-based too.
Yes,
Most of my
cloud-based.
stuff is all cloud-based. I've used other products that are only desktop-based, and I'm out on that.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here. We have a message from our sponsor, Canopy, and then when we come back, we'll have your second CPE code for this session, so don't go away.
This past tax season, I was in the office past 10 o'clock twice. I'm Kat Campbell. I own Tower Financial Partners, and we have offices in Colorado Springs and Denver Technical Center. I began my company based on financial coaching. And as I coached people through handling their money better, making sound financial decisions, I realized that their biggest bill was taxes. And so if I didn't know taxes, I really wasn't advising very well. We started using Canopy to replace multiple systems that we had cobbled together to try and get the same effect. It has increased our efficiency tremendously because I don't have employees looking in 4 different places. Canopy helped me replace my CRM. It helped me replace my tax resolution software, transcript pulling software, and it added in the ability to really have those forms created for me, which was not available in other software.
My name is Mackenzie Campbell. I am the Client Success Manager at Tower Financial Partners. I've been with the firm for about a year and joined when my mom, the owner of the firm, asked me to help grow the business as quickly as possible. I typically use the CRM side of Canopy, the practice management side that keeps track of all of our clients. It's how I understand who I'm talking to on the phone if I've never seen them before. With hundreds of clients, that happens all the time. And it lets me see what's been going on for years without ever having met them.
Being able to have client files in the cloud in a secure area that I know is always accessible, all I need is a browser, makes me very portable. If I'm on vacation, I can check Canopy and see where my client files are. I can get an email from a client that says, I just received a notice from the IRS. They'll upload that to Canopy. I can look at that right there and say, oh, you know what? That's already taken care of. Never mind, don't worry about it. And I've never had to break out my VPN. The strength of having a product like Canopy in your practice allows you to be able to know your clients and keep everything in one place so you're on top of it. You've got too many pieces of paper, too many different cases. You're running 2, 3, 5, 700 tax returns a year. Using Canopy allows you to be able to look at those things from one point of view. I really can make Canopy my homepage and where I run my business.
Welcome back. And you'll notice at the bottom of your screen, we're posting the second CPE code for this session. So be sure to write down that 3-digit code if you plan to claim CPE credit for this session. You've already gotten one code. This is the second. There will be one more before we're finished. Also, note that up on Slido.com, I've posted a question on, and it just went away. So hold on just a moment. Let's see. We'll come back to that in just a minute. My Slido has just, oh wait, it disappeared. But now, I asked a question on what software tools you're using if you're doing budgeting and forecasting services. So if you want to go up to Slido.com, SLIDO.com, and share that information, that would be super. The code to get into Slido.com is December CPE. So we'd love to hear what else you're using for tools to do budgeting and forecasting, because we think that would be pretty interesting. And then we want to get back to our discussion a little bit and try and go through some of the initial steps of what it takes to set up this kind of work with your client. So we've talked a little bit about needing to get the accounts associated from your accounting software into whatever product you're using for budgeting. And then what comes next after that? So.
Sure, I'll start. So I'd like to back up one step just for context. So I do feel like before you choose to go down this path of offering these services to your client, you got to figure out ahead of time how involved you want to be. So do you want to help with the pre-work, meaning like any bookkeeping work, compliance, getting everything caught up to date? Because if you're going to import the chart of accounts and all the actuals from the accounting system, it's got to be up to date. And in this context, I would consider that pre-work. And that's kind of what you're talking about with acquiring a whole bookkeeping firm to do that. It's really impressive of you. And
It wasn't fun.
So I would say that's step one. And then I would say step two is after you've decided which tools are going to be best for you and your clients. And for me personally, that's been Futurely. For Marty, that's been Fathom. And Byron, I'm sure you haven't, not sure what all you recommend to your people, but it's
Whatever works for
whatever
person,
works for them. So you selected one, right? So then you import the actuals, and then that means that the chart of accounts needs to be meaningful, and it needs to be meaningful enough to where it's not cluttered and it's not an administrative burden. It needs to be just right. And then I go. The next step would be to start entering in some assumptions. And the biggest thing I hear from my clients is that they always think that when they haven't gone through this before, they will say, oh, it's all in my head. And I'm like, okay, well, we're gonna get it out of your head, and we're gonna get it either onto a piece of paper or in a spreadsheet or in this tool. And if you're working with me, we're gonna get it in the tool. So we go through all the assumptions, and setting that up means talking about the business model. So it's going through the revenue streams, it's going through each set of expenses. I would say starting with revenue, they get excited about that, so that's what we go through first. For me, it usually ends up being about 4 sessions with a client. And it's usually like 2 or 3 hours per session. And so however you charge your time, you could do that as a package, you could do it hourly, whatever is working for you and your people. But it takes me about 4 sessions. The first session is revenue, the second session is expenses, the third session is everything else, and the fourth one, they can be involved or not, but it's putting it all together and making it meaningful for them in a deliverable that then you can go review. But it does take at least 8 hours to get it all done at a minimum, I would say. And then as part of that, you could choose to set up KPIs at that time, but I'd say getting revenue in first and salaries in second. And then after that, it's really up to the client what they want to talk about. So.
All right. You guys want to add anything to that?
Yeah, y'all do a lot.
That's very comprehensive.
That's amazing. So we take a little different approach because once we gotta get the books right, and
Yeah.
then we just hook up Fathom to it, and then we're just going to take a handful of KPIs that we're going to teach to and just go to. And I don't think we go near as in depth as you do. Our clients aren't ready to go in the depth that you're going. But the key thing is it's when you first start it, the amount of time it takes is a lot initially, and being able to make sure you have somebody that you can talk to, because you're going to stumble setting this thing up, and then give this thing away to a couple of clients just to see how you like it, and just see what the time commitment is, because you don't want to jump in and start pricing it, and then your assumptions are just, I think it's different for every firm, because it came down for us on a monthly basis. It doesn't add a whole lot of time for us, because once we get the accounting right, it's just, I look at the KPIs and it's part of the monthly conversation, and it's just it just adds to what we're going to talk about. But it took us the amount of time it took us to initially get it set up on our first client to now, it is completely different. I mean, you get better at it. Yeah. And had a lot of people to call to help me out. So.
And we had a question on KPIs, because I keep forgetting that we're trying to stay away from too many acronyms, but key performance indicators. These are the things that you're using to measure your success in this, and that your client's using to measure how they're doing in this situation. So it sounds like at the far end of the table with Marty, we've got you've set up kind of a cookie cutter process at this point. And then we're moving more and more toward a customizable level as we come closer here. And you're all about helping firms customize their choices. So let's move down the table and talk a little bit about going from everybody's going to do the same thing or we're not going to do it, to customizing somewhat, but still trying to keep it for your own sanity, pretty much the same product and same process for your clients, to what can we do that's creative for firms all over the place. So, Elizabeth, how about?
When I...
So is there still a customization process for each client?
I would say yes. It would be very hard for me to offer a standard package. I know about how much time it's going to take, but some of the support involved in there and some of the back and forth, I really need to understand the client first and their expectations and their discipline, and it's in order to price it correctly, knowing this suite of tools that I have available where I can do it most efficiently for both of us.
And a lot of that's dependent on the level of service that you're providing, right? Because Marty, a lot of yours is the analysis of the existing data, presenting it in a meaningful way for the client.
Help them make decisions.
Right, to help make decisions, as opposed to putting multiple assumption scenarios together, and because obviously that's going to be unique to every single client. Yeah. The decisions. I worked with a firm that was advising it's more than a coffee shop, but a custom coffee place, and there's a lot of assumptions associated with their inventory and their spending. That's going to be totally different than a horticulturist or something like that. So depending on what the level of service you're providing is going to determine how much customization is you're going to need to have. And probably you want to start with the least amount to get your toes wet and get comfortable with it, and then really expand into that deep level of assumptions and scenarios.
Because on that customization point, one of the reasons we have a process and we try to stay the same is because I'm scared to death of getting into the CFO services again. We used to do that, and I don't want to do it again. And that's just not our model. So, and that's where if you're trying to get in the CFO services, I think this is a good platform if you want to dive deep into that. Because, like I say, it's 10 to 15% of our accounting clients can do this service, and then you probably 25% of those are candidates for CFO service if you want to offer that. And so you can keep digging deeper and going, because we just don't have the time to do the scenarios that you're doing.
Yeah.
Glad you're doing
I like it.
Yeah.
I think it's fun.
You know where to send the work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So can you guys share any experiences of either success stories that were kind of a surprise with clients when you started going down this path in this arena, or on the flip side, sort of failures that you didn't expect that could help our viewers who are thinking of doing this as an additional service?
Failure is my whole bookkeeping, having the books right comment. That's where that
Yeah.
comes from. The biggest failures came from that, because they were expecting one thing and they got something else, and the advice we were giving was just, and then it was a weird spot to be in, because we're like, hey, you're a CPA, you make my books right. I'm like, well, we don't have the staff to do that. You need to have your books right. And it was just it just was awkward. And then we had several failures on that, and you got to have that. That's biggest failure we've had.
Yeah. I would agree. That's a key component
Yeah.
to it for sure. And whether you're doing the bookkeeping yourself or collaborating with another firm that's offering those services, but making sure you're having an active conversation with the business owner and their other vendors in order to get it up to date and know you have a good starting point. And whether that's one time or on an ongoing basis, whatever is most meaningful in that situation. I would say one of the biggest surprises that I've had is how much clients actually want to change the assumptions themselves. So I work with them so much, and I help them set up these tools, and so oftentimes it works out where we're sitting at the same table, and I'm like, okay, what is your assumption for this category? And they tell me, and I enter it in, or they'll give me a long list, whatever. And then when it's time to come and review it, and then they want to, I want to make a change to service line number 2, because I think it's going to be so much higher than I originally expected.
And does it seem arbitrary?
No, sometimes they might have had an actual change in their business where they might have brought on a new salesperson, and then they have a change in their expectations for that particular area, or they might have acquired a new investor and they have an additional cash, and so they can grow their staff, or any number of ways. But I've been surprised how much they're like, oh, show me how to do that. I want to make the change myself. And I'm like, yeah, I'm glad to show you how to do this. And that has its set of hazards too, right? But it is their books and it's their assumptions. And I want them to feel comfortable making those changes too, because it is a process of education as well.
Probably like when you talk about the success side, 10 years ago, I was kind of given this it was not automated at all. It was all with Excel. And I had a client, they're like, I hate doing this. We're not making any money. I'm just going to shut this thing down. They were just ready to give up. They were just tired. They were working 3,000 hours plus every year. So we kind of looked at it and said, and we did some of these analysis and some budget. It's like, well, if you do these kind of tweaks, change your pricing, you do change your labor a little bit. I said, I think you can make some changes. And they're like, wow, I didn't know that's what the problem was. Well, fast forward, they just sold the company for $12 million. That is the best thing ever to see. Go back to that conversation. They were just defeated, and just show them what was going on. A very smart business person, and they had that knowledge of, okay, that's what's wrong with my company. and then they fixed it. And then we measured it and showed them how everything, and then it's the best thing ever. I mean, and it's very inspirational because you're sitting there, you're like, I share that story with clients a lot. If they're down the dumps, hey, if you just take ownership of what you got going on and quit blaming other folks and make some proactive changes, it can happen. And that's the coolest experience I've ever had, just with that deal.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay, we're going to take one more quick break and hear a little bit more from our sponsor, Canopy. And when we come back, we'll have your last CPE code for this session, and then we're going to talk about some pretty interesting things about how you can deal with your feelings about going into this, what can be kind of a risky area. So we'll be right back.
The way Canopy affects my day-to-day operations is I start with Canopy and I end with Canopy every day. I'm James Fontenberry. I'm the CEO and founder of the ATA Group. We're a small consulting and tax practice right outside of Kansas City. The ATA Group is a CFO services strategic partner firm. We really want to help clients and owners of businesses chart courses to obtain the future and to obtain their vision. Canopy for my firm has not helped it. That's an understatement. It's revolutionized my firm because it gives me a platform to track what I need to engage and when I need to engage with my clients. So I needed Canopy to automate a lot of processes that I was either doing manually or in a OneNote document that I was having to clear out and reprint. I used the task templates and the workflow automation to launch new companies. Before Canopy, it took me months to achieve what I can now do in a week or two. If it is a simple LLC, I can launch it in a day because of what Canopy has brought to the table for me. Canopy has allowed me to be remote and to work virtually because I don't have to have it on a server and then roll it out to multiple workstations. It's accessible 24/7. So regardless of where I'm at, I have my clients' data at my fingertips anytime. Canopy has definitely helped me gain more clients. It has actually helped me land about $3,000 in reoccurring revenue, and it's actually growing. By the end of next month, we'll be about $10,000 in reoccurring revenue. There's not a day that I'm not in Canopy with my computer open. I have to have it to be able to be successful in my role. I guess to summarize it, I can automate my processes that I have for clients more efficiently, more effectively, and in a quicker turnaround time. And it allows me and my junior associate a structured platform to just provide quality service.
Hi, we're back. I'd like to show you the third CPE code for this session, which should appear on the bottom of your screen. So write down that code if you're hoping to get CPE credit for this session. And if you do have any questions about CPE or anything relating to what's going on here today, you can reach us at info@ensuringsuccess.com. I want to thank you for some of the answers that you've sent in regarding the polling question we had about what budgeting and forecasting services or software tools that you're using to do this service. Some of the answers we got included a lot of people are using Excel spreadsheets. We've got some Fathom, we've got Oracle, we've got Drake, we've got adaptive planning, we've got I made up my own, and MoneyTree, and QuickBooks Zero. So Sage, those are kind of the things that we're seeing other people are using. So we've a few more questions for our panelists. First of all, I'm going to start with Byron and say, what have you seen with the firms that you're advising? What works best with them when they're going down this path of budgeting and forecasting?
So what works best? Trial and error. You really need to get into trying a lot of these apps. So many people said Excel on the list, and I suspect the large majority have not experimented with anything else. They've just, maybe they jumped in briefly, did a quick trial of something, decided that doesn't work, I need to be able to go in Excel, and they've built it there. You really have to commit to trying out a few different applications, figuring out what works, and use it on your own firm. Use it on your own business. Put your information in there and build the assumptions and look at the KPIs and see what works. It's easiest because you're the most intimate with your numbers. So it's a great place to start. So I would say you really have to set your expectations as well. because I think people believe they'll be able to just purchase a tool, press the button, and everything pops out and you're done. And it does, as Elizabeth said, there's a lot of work that goes into it, and you have to understand that the tool just augments your knowledge. It doesn't do the work for you.
Okay. Any other comments on that? On what you've seen?
Take it
Just
right
in
on,
general.
experiment, and use it on your own firm. That was
Yeah,
key, because
that's a great idea.
that is huge, using it on your own firm.
Right, make yourself the guinea pig.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then and for me, there's a couple of tools that I've used, and they're always coming out with new features, and I've had to learn, like, I am a competent person, and I will give you an excellent deliverable, but I might not know every button to punch, and that's okay. And when I'm sitting there in front of a client and I don't know what button to punch because I just forgot, or they move something, then it's should not be, but it's often a reflection of my intelligence. And so I just have to tell them, like, I'm sorry, like, this changed. I gotta go look it up. I know it's somewhere. And so being okay with that, and just being upfront about it with the client. And I think they appreciate that too.
And I think something you said there about there are a lot of tools and they're changing, is I find some people say, well, I tried that 2 years ago and it didn't work for me. And all of these tools have changed. In 2 years, it's a totally different product. So, don't play that, I tried Fathom 2 years ago, it didn't work for me. Well, life has changed in the last 2 years, and it'll change even quicker. So keep your mind open.
Okay. And one thing we were talking about at the break was that you can't necessarily just go out from doing accounting and bookkeeping and say, I'm going to start doing budgeting and forecasting. It's not just a state of mind, but you need some skill set too. And so any recommendations on what people need before they take that plunge? What accountants need to offer that service?
I would read about it, read what other people are doing, and then there's a lot of people that have a program like this that you can go to, and they offer CPE, and go there and go take, you can go to, like Simple Numbers has a book, you have Profit First, there's a bunch of ones. You go, and I would go to more than one, and just kind of take, and you don't take everything of what they say, you can kind of mix and match them to what fits your style, and that's kind of what we've done. But it's kind of, and then that way you can meet some people that can help you out when you get stumped. So that, you gotta have people around you that can help you. So.
Yeah, for sure. I would also say making the effort to actually go through the training modules that the software vendor is providing. Or if there's a specific topic that you're looking for, actually go find a course on that, whether that's an online course or an in-person course. And but it takes time to do that, so it's just choosing to make the effort, to make that investment in yourself and in your company so that you can offer that service to someone else.
Okay. And for each of you, about a 15-second summary on how you can go about marketing this service to your existing clients.
I offered it to a couple of clients for free and then got feedback.
Okay.
And then I took that feedback and then started echoing it. Hey, this client tried it. I didn't tell them I gave it to them for free, but hey, they liked it, got big benefits, and that's what we did.
Yeah, for my existing clients, I usually just drop it in conversation. I'm like, this would be really great if we could project your cash balance, and I can do this in a tool, and you'd be able to update it regularly. And they're like, oh, that's a good idea. And it usually takes, a couple conversations to get there, but it happens. And then new clients, I make sure to ask whenever I have a new prospect.
All right. And pricing, any information about pricing this service in addition to the other services you're offering? Or is it just custom based on the client?
For me, it's worked best once I feel that I can confidently set a flat fee whenever I know the expectations of the client and for myself as well. But until I get to that point, I will have an hourly rate for a period of time. It will not be an open-ended hourly arrangement. It may be, say, okay, the first 2 months we're working together, I'm going to charge you X number of dollars per hour or maybe per session, and then go from there. But then after that period of time, set a flat fee.
Okay.
And I would suggest that, I'm all over the map on this, but I would go for us, the service we offer, do 4 hours and do it at your highest bill, whatever your tax rate is. Start off there, and then as you gain confidence in this, because that's easy, because you're already charging people at that tax hourly rate. So say, okay, it's going to take you 4 hours to do it. You can sell that with confidence, and then as you start seeing the results, just keep on getting it higher till they say no. I mean, so.
All right, thank you all so much, and thank you all so much. And I'm going to do some closing credits here, so please stick with us for just another minute or two. And also, all of you who were here today, we appreciate so much your time and participation in today's sessions. Any of you who were here, 10-hour warriors, we would love to hear about that, either on Twitter at #DecemberCPE or at info@ensuringsuccess.com. Let us know you made it through 10 hours. Okay, I would like to thank, first of all, our sponsors that made this event possible: Avalara, Boomer Consulting, Canopy, CPA.com, eFileForBiz.com, Intuit ProConnect, Peisner Johnson, Receipt Bank, Sage, and Xero. I'd like to thank the incredible crew here at AMS Pictures, and I'm sure I don't have the whole list. There are so many people involved in this, but we have Jeff, who is our floor manager, here with us. You didn't see him all day, but there he is. He's been here all day. Joel, Kyle, Brett, Guillermo, Scott, Delissa, Margaret, Cliff, Shavella, Tom, Donald, all of you at AMS made this an incredible day and great production. And the amazing team at CPA Practice Advisor. And anybody who is here, we're hoping they'll come in the studio and kind of join us here for the last moment. But first of all, big shout out to Isaac O'Bannon, our managing editor, who is not here on site, but he's been handling our social media all day from Oklahoma. And Joe Fuller, Rachel Ozinski, Lester Kraft, Brian and Scott Citron, and Barry Strobel. Thank you, everybody, for making this an incredible Ensuring Success 2018, and we'll see you next year. All right, woohoo!